Hello and welcome to Gardening with Ben's award-winning podcast, as voted by Grow Your Own magazine and by my followers and listeners. So if you're new to the podcast, make sure you click that subscribe button to stay up to date with all our podcasts, listen back to all our previous episodes, sit back, grab a brew and let's enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome back to Gardening with Ben. Well, today it's now Tuesday, the 2nd of November, and we are certainly going to be flying through this month like we fly through every other single month at the moment. But tune in every day and you will be able to listen to Gardening with Ben's episodes. So yesterday we were talking all about what jobs need to be done in the garden, especially those jobs that need doing in the flower garden, the vegetable beds and in the fruit garden, making sure that you get all them jobs done, tick them off as you go along, and then hopefully you can keep on top of all the tasks that need doing in the garden. It's just finding the time to get all these jobs done. I know I've certainly carried a few over from October myself, so hopefully I'll soon be able to crack on and get doing all these jobs in the allotment. If the weather keeps fine, that's the main thing. If not, we'll be stuck in the shed continuing to do improvements in there, but hopefully the weather will soon. As we get later on in the months, it gets colder and the rain doesn't seem to come as much, it's just more frosty really, so hopefully we start getting some cooler mornings and less rain, where at least I can still get out in the garden and do some bits. So in today's episode we're going to be talking all about planting seeds, bulbs, flowers, plants, bushes. We're going to be talking about what you can still plant this month in November, whether it be in the flower garden, in the vegetable beds, or whether it be in the fruit garden. So make sure you got your pen and paper ready, sit back, grab a brew, and let's get on with today's episode. So the first part, we're going to be talking about what can be planted in the vegetable garden. So you might be thinking there's not much that you can actually plant in the vegetable garden in November, but you are wrong. There's still quite a bit that you can be planting in the garden to get crops early in the beginning of next year, so you can get ahead of yourself and get growing stuff now so that you can be picking stuff early from the year. And because there's not much growing around the beginning of the year, so it's always good to be picking stuff all year round if possible. So that would be a big thing that I'd like to do, is get stuff growing all year round, but one day we'll hopefully get there. So the first thing that you can plant is asparagus crowns. Now I've not got any asparagus crowns, so I've just put this on my list to purchase and try and grow some asparagus, because I've never grown it on my plot before and it's something that I would love to try and grow. And as you know, asparagus is expensive to buy from the supermarkets, so growing your own asparagus would save you a lot of money, and I'm all for growing stuff that'll save you money, especially the expensive stuff in supermarkets. A bit like rhubarb. Rhubarb's really expensive to purchase from supermarkets, so if I can grow it cheaply I certainly will. So I've put asparagus on my list to purchase, so that can be planted now in the ground outside. The next up is onions. If you've not planted your autumn onions, you can get those in the ground now. I've planted all mine and got them all in the ground ready, and they are starting to shoot through. But remember, if you're planting your onions, to put netting over them or something to stop any squirrels pulling them out or the birds pulling them out, because they do love to go for the green shoots what pop up from the onions. And also that takes me on to garlic as well. If you've not planted your garlic now, get that in the ground before it's too late, and your onions and your garlic will be ready to pick around June, July time. So again, make sure you put netting over them, because birds do like to eat the tops off the green shoots, because there's not much greenery around at this time of year or fresh stuff for them, so they'll tend to go for the onion shoots and the garlic shoots. And squirrels can be very pesky as well, so keep an eye out for them. Now, I've never grown peas at this time of year, but apparently you can sow a variety of peas called meteor, and those can be sown in the ground, straight in the ground, and they will be ready early come springtime. So if you get those in the ground now, make sure you put them in your lines, and again make sure you try and protect them from rats, mice, squirrels, birds, because there's not much food around for them. They'll be definitely going towards them, so make sure you can protect them as much as possible to stop them from getting eaten, really, and to stop you losing your crops, which I know I've done once or twice before when I've planted peas. None of them have come through because they've all been eaten before they've even grown, so make sure you do protect them. And then broad beans. I did a podcast all about broad beans, so if you've not listened to that episode, make sure you do listen to it. It's not too far back in the episodes list, and it's explaining about what variety of broad beans you can plant now and the reasons why you do plant them now. But basically it's because they will be ready early before the black fly starts to come out, as a lot of people plant them around March, April time, but when they're starting to get ready, all the black fly are around and they just swarm onto the plants. But if you plant them now, they'll be early before the black flies start to appear. So that's one of the reasons why people do plant them now rather than next year. Now, if you've got a greenhouse or a cold frame, why not sow some winter gem lettuce, and that will grow throughout the winter in your cold frames, in your greenhouses or polytunnels where it's a bit warmer and protected, so you can get lettuce all year round and enjoy the freshness and the crispiness of the lettuce. Spring onions, obviously why they call spring, because you can sow them now and they'll be ready for springtime. Another good thing what you can grow, and you can be picking it early in the year. So they're cheap enough packets to buy, spring onions. Get some purchased and sow them into the ground. And pak choi, you can also grow pak choi now as well. Same with the spring onions, but as well you need to sow them both in a greenhouse, and when they're ready to be transplanted, transplant them into somewhere where they can grow and develop, and hopefully you'll be picking them pretty soon. So next up, we're going to talk about herbs. We don't often talk about herbs, and I've just recently obviously started getting into herbs, so I'm going to be looking at all the different things I can do with herbs and how to grow them, as I've recently done an episode on mint. If you've not listened to that one, make sure you listen to it, as I didn't realise how many different varieties of mint there is out there. So I'm trying to grow all different varieties, not just to use it, but for the smell and for the enjoyment as well. So you can be sowing some herbs now, but they need to be sown in a warm greenhouse that's heated, or on a bright windowsill. And the ones that you can sow now are basil, dill, chives and parsley. So if you're wanting to grow some herbs, make sure it's somewhere warm and bright, and you can sow them seeds now. Now let's talk about what fruit to plant this month. Now these are the perfect times to be planting your fruit, as the soil is wet and it rains a lot, so they get established really, really well. So this is why you need to be looking at what fruit you want to plant this month. And obviously planting fruit, you'll get them coming back every year on the fruit plants, and it will save you so much money because you can freeze fruit as well and store it away, so you can keep picking it and saving it in the freezer for when you actually need it. And some people even manage to use the fruit all year round because they've saved that much of it, and it saves you so much money. If you're into making jams, preserves, you can make all them out of it, flans, anything out of the fruit. You can get so much good recipes from growing fruit. So what fruit do we need to plant in November? So the first one being rhubarb crowns. Now is the time to be planting your rhubarb crowns. I've got 16 rhubarb crowns on my allotment. Yes, 16. I started off with about 6, and then as they were getting bigger I divided them up, and I've now got 16 rhubarb crowns. And rhubarb is so expensive to buy from the supermarkets. You're talking like £2 for just like 6 stalks, and they're not even big stalks. And the other year I was told that there was a shortage on rhubarb. I wish I knew that, because I would have certainly sold all my rhubarb to anyone to make loads of money, but I never knew about it. So yeah, rhubarb is the one to grow. Strawberry plants. Now is the perfect time to be growing your strawberry plants. Like, if you're growing them for the first time, I bought about 12 when I first started. I now have 200 strawberry plants. Yes, 200. And the reason why is that they send out the runners after they've fruited every year, about 4 or 5 runners off each plant, and you'll be able to plant them up and grow them on, and you'll get more strawberry plants every year. And trust me, once you've grown your own strawberry plants, you will have more strawberry plants in the year to come. And my neighbour, he had some off me, and last year about 12 or 16 plants, and now he's took 100 runners off this year, so he's going to have loads of strawberries next year, as he knows they're delicious from the ones that I gave him, so he's growing even more next year. Raspberries is a good time to be planting raspberries. These come as individual canes. You plant them in the ground and they will keep growing year after year. You just keep trimming them back, following the rules around growing raspberries, and they'll keep coming back. Now, the variety that I suggest you should grow are the autumn raspberries. They are bigger fruit and they seem to do better. I don't know why, but I always think autumn raspberries do better than the summer varieties of raspberries. Blackberries. Now, I want to start growing some blackberries, so I may be planting some this month as well. But you can also get thornless raspberries now, so you're not cutting yourself to shreds as you're picking the blackberries, not raspberries. You can get thornless blackberries and you won't be cutting yourselves when you're picking them all. So have a look around at different varieties and see which ones you want to grow. And again, blackberries are so expensive to buy in the punnets from the supermarket, so if you can grow them yourself, freeze them and save them for when you actually need them. Gooseberries. You can plant your gooseberry plants now. Now, if you don't like the sour ones, the green ones, you can grow a variety what are red, and these are sweet variety of gooseberries, and they are absolutely delicious, trust me. If you've not tried a red gooseberry, you won't know what you're missing. So buy some red gooseberry plants, get them planted, and see how well they do in your garden. Currants. You can grow all different coloured variety of currants. Black currants, white currants, red currants. I don't think there's blue currants yet, not that I know of. But you can grow different varieties of currants, and again you can cut them all off at the end of the year and freeze them all and make different varieties of things out of them, jams, juices, anything you want really, and you'll get absolutely thousands on your plant. So try growing currants. The only thing is you've got to keep taking the tips off them, all the stems off them, and that can be a bit fiddly, so hence why I've probably not grown currants myself yet, but I may be looking at growing some, but we'll see about currants. It's not on my to-do list. Blueberries. Now, I have some blueberry plants on my allotment and they do really well each year. The first year they didn't do too well, but the second year they did. And what you need to do, you need to make sure they're planted in herbaceous compost, and that means that they don't like the normal soil. They need to be planted in herbaceous. So what I've done, I've planted my blueberries into pots full of herbaceous compost and sunk them into the ground so that they're level with the ground and that they don't mix with the soil. So then I can just keep topping it up or changing the soil, and they do really well. So that is all the fruit plants you can plant in November. So if you get a couple of each of those, you're well away, and you will be having some fantastic fruit from your allotment over the years. You won't be picking your rhubarb in its first year. You're not meant to pick that in the first year. You're meant to leave the crown in the ground to settle, so you have to resist picking it. But the second year you can start picking the rhubarb from the crown. So yeah, let me know which fruit you're going to be growing on your allotment. So next up, let's talk about what flower seeds to plant. Now let's talk about what flowers need to be planted. Now flowers is something that I am really getting into now. The last couple of years I'm getting more and more experimental at what flowers I'm growing on my plot. I'm trying all different things and trying to grow new stuff every year. See which stuff works well on my allotment, which stuff's easy to grow, and which stuff does look nice on the plot as well. And I'm trying to grow stuff as well which come back every year so that I don't have to keep replanting them, but also stuff that are easy to grow from seed if I am growing from seed, because I don't want the hassle of maintaining it and looking after it. I want stuff that's nice and simple and straightforward to grow, which I'm sure a lot of people do as well, as the less hassle, the more you have to spend time looking after it really. So the first thing that you can be planting this month is spring bulbs. Now I have planted so many spring bulbs over these last few years, and this year I've planted a load more as well, and I keep thinking I must have no more room for spring bulbs, but I've still got loads of room left for spring bulbs on my plot, and over the next few years to come the plot will be absolutely jam-packed full of spring bulbs, and it will look absolutely fantastic. But we'll see how it gets on, and we'll see which areas need filling up. I try to take photos of what it looks like and where there's patches, and so I know where to plant them the year after. But if you've not planted your tulips can be planted this month, because they're better to be planted in November, because they won't get diseased as much. Apparently they get diseased if you plant them too early, but I don't know why, because they're in the ground all year long. But I've heard that, so that's one of the things that I need to let you know. Now if you want to grow a magnolia tree, now is the time to be planting that. It's obviously wet in the ground and it can establish its roots well and take hold to grow nicely. Roses can be planted now, again for that reason, that it's wet in the ground. They won't be growing the flowers, so they can concentrate on growing the roots. And yeah, have a look which varieties are around. There's plenty of varieties of roses to choose from. I've taken quite a lot of cuttings from my roses last year. I've planted some for the first time last year, and I thought, shall I take some cuttings or shall I leave them to get established? But I've taken some cuttings from them, and some of them have rooted, so hopefully we'll get some extra plants growing. They'll take a while to get going, but hopefully they'll get growing pretty fast if I look after them. Heathers. You can plant your heathers this month. Heathers obviously add nice colour through the winter time, and they look nice and they're easy to maintain as well. So try growing some heathers as well. Pansies, obviously a winter favourite, as they flower throughout the winter and springtime, and they make the garden look beautiful. Now if you're wanting to plant some hedging, this is the perfect time to plant it, again for the reason being that it is wet on the ground and they will take root pretty easy and grow well. So if you're wanting to grow some hedging, have a look around at different varieties that you want to grow, whether you want to grow for decorative or whether you want to grow for security with spikes in it. Have a look around at what sort of hedging you want to grow and follow the instructions on how far you have to space them apart. But most garden centres will have hedging in at this time of year, and it's the perfect time to be getting to grow them. Now what seeds can you sow this month? What flower seeds can you be growing? You might be thinking, well, it's too cold to be growing flower seeds, but some need to be started now so that they will flower in the summertime, because they take that long to grow. And these are your foxglove. Your foxglove need to be planted now, the seeds. Lupins and delphiniums, because they take that long to grow, you have to start them off pretty early, and you'll obviously need to start them off in a heated greenhouse or in a house, but make sure there's plenty of light, because they'll just get weedy and scraggly. You need to make sure there's plenty of light to get them to grow and to germinate, and obviously the heat, which will help them germinate. So have a look around. Foxgloves are absolutely fantastic for bees as well as lupins. Bees love to go inside the foxgloves, and the more bees that you can get onto your allotment, the more fruit you will have on your plot, because they will help spread pollination throughout the flowers, hence the reason why I plant all the spring bulbs, because the spring bulbs attract all the bees, and the spring bulbs are out when the fruit trees are blossoming. So you need to attract the bees to your plot to get as much fruit as possible. I cannot get that across enough. I must say it in nearly every podcast about spring bulbs. But the more spring bulbs you get, the more bees you get, the more fruit you get. So I keep drilling that across. So there'll be a massive sale on spring bulbs now. Everybody will be going out buying them. But I do encourage more people to grow spring bulbs on their allotments, because it really did get a lot of fruit on my plot this year. And I do put it down to having flowers on my plot to get them. But last not but least is sweet peas. Now, I tried growing them once around March, April time, and they did really well. But I read that you should actually start them off now, because they can establish better and you can get a better crop from them. So I did mine last year at this time of year. I shared a fantastic tips on how to grow sweet peas to make sure that every one of them germinated, because they're expensive to buy sweet pea seeds and you can struggle to get them to germinate. All I did was get a Tupperware box, put a piece of kitchen roll in the bottom, wet it, laid the sweet pea seeds on top of it, put the lid back on it to keep it moist, and every one of them germinated within 7 days. And then all I did was got some tweezers and put them into the soil, and they grew fantastic. Now that is a tip what I shared, and a lot of people did it last year to get their sweet peas to germinate, and they also had fantastic results. So if you want to grow some sweet peas, use that tip and I'll let you use it wisely. And sweet peas are absolutely fantastic to grow because they can be cut and come again. The more you cut the flowers to put in your vases at home and give away, the more flowers will grow from them. And again, they smell fantastic, they'll attract the bees, and they will look absolutely stunning on your garden. They're an old classic English garden favourite, and more people should be growing sweet peas because they are that beautiful and they look gorgeous. So yeah, if you've not grown sweet peas before, give them a try and let me know how you get on with growing them. So it's been quite a full episode, this episode, with how much there is to plant, mainly focusing on the fruit really. The fruit is the right time to be planting this month in November, but out of everything I would be looking at growing the fruit, the spring bulbs, the sweet peas, the foxgloves and the lupins. So I'm going to be looking at them and thinking, what can I grow on my allotment? So I'm going to be writing down my list of all the things what I want to get planted, get them ordered, and hopefully they will arrive for me to start planting this month. And hopefully we'll be able to start seeing the delights of it all next year on the allotment, because I've never grown foxglove, lupins or delphiniums from seed before, so it's going to be a first time thing for me. So I'm going to have to order them seeds to give them a try. I've grown sweet peas obviously quite a few times now, and they've done fantastic, so I really want to give foxgloves, lupins and delphiniums a try, and we'll see how they get on. Obviously I'll share it with you all, let you know how I'm getting on with growing them, whether they work or whether they don't. That is the question. It's same with anything really. Growing stuff is always a learning curve. You're always trying different methods and trying new ways as well. And if you can get something growing well, you'll certainly try growing it again. That's what I usually do. If something grows well, I grow it again. If it doesn't, I don't try it again. But sometimes I do keep persisting with trying to grow it. Same as carrots, I've been growing them for 16 years now, and I think I've only just cracked on how to do them. So I'm going to be using that method for growing carrots next year, but you'll have to stay tuned for that method in a later episode. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's been a long episode, 25 minutes, but there is a lot of information in it for you, and I hope you found it useful. If you are a new subscriber, do click that subscribe button to stay up to date with all our podcasts. They come up on a daily basis at the moment at around 6 o'clock in the morning for you to download and listen to whenever you want. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and as always, remember, keep gardening, keep smiling, and keep listening to Gardening with Ben. So thank you for listening to today's episode of Gardening with Ben. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Remember to do click that subscribe button to stay up to date with all our podcasts. Feel free to share them on your Instagram stories so that it spreads the word about my podcast and we get lots more listeners. Feel free to check out my social media sites, Facebook and Instagram as well, Gardening with Ben, and also my YouTube channel, to stay up to date with all my handy videos, how-to videos, and sharing my tips and advice. And feel free to check the link as well in the description for my Gardening with Ben t-shirts. Lots of funny gardening design t-shirts in there for you to purchase at great prices too. So thanks again, and as always, remember, keep smiling and keep gardening.